Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen. Waiting on a couple of parts for some more substantial projects on the Mini Lathe. But I thought I'd fill in a little bit of time by making some new way wipers for the saddle. Now the standard wipers that came with this machine, they're just little bits of rubber. They didn't have a piece of metal over the top of them or anything. They would just sit on here, and they had just a couple of little screws going through them. And basically they just fell off. They just pull through the head of the screws, and realistically they should have a piece of a thin piece of metal or maybe some big washers or something over them. And I thought, well, I can probably make some little piece of metal to sit over the top of them. And I thought, well, I could probably actually make up something a little bit better. So what I thought I might do is make up a felt wiper for the Mini Lathe. So I've just made up this rough cardboard template of the shape of the area that I'm going to make up the piece that holds the felt in position. And you can see it just sits on there. It's just giving me the right shape of this section of the lathe bed and roughly the length that I'm going to be using, just so that I have that marked out, so I don't have to be fiddling around when I'm cutting it into this, which is just a piece of 20x6 aluminium extrusion. It's just an offcut that was just in the sort of offcuts bin. I got a couple of them, so I thought I might make one for either side of the saddle. And what I've done here, you can see I've already actually marked out the shape that I'm going to cut into this, just by holding this rough template on there and using the extra on the aluminium to give me a little piece that I can drop down the sides with. So what I'm about to do, I'm just going to clamp these two pieces together back to back and put them in the milling vise and just knock out that piece there with the converted drill press for a bit of a start and see how we go. And then once I get to that point, I'll then move forward and cut some recesses in the areas where I want to put the felt in, and give us something to hold the felt and see how it starts to turn out. So I'll just go and clamp this in the drill and get started cutting it out. And I think that should pretty much do it. Here we go. Not too bad, ladies and gentlemen. Not too bad at all. Couple of holes, bit of a recess for the felt. Good as gold. Another one for the back. We're killing it. So I've got the saddle from the Mini Lathe on the bench now, and these are our pieces here. You can see there I've drilled them, and I've drilled them to accept an M4 socket head bolt that just ends up flush. Head's countersunk in, plenty of thread there. So what I'll do now is I'll just set these out. There's the other one, mirror reverse of that one for the other side. So I'll set these up. I'm just going to use a 4mm transfer punch and mark the positions of the bolt holes, and then I'll drill and tap the saddle to accept the socket head bolts in these positions. Rightio, the saddle's now tapped to accept these M4 socket head bolts. So we just whack them in there, tighten them down like so. Same deal with the other two. The other side is exactly the same. And what I've done is I've got this felt sheet on eBay. It's, I don't know, 3 or 4 mil. It's got an adhesive on one side, like $1, if that. Cheap as anything. And I've made a template out of just another piece of aluminium that I can use to cut some felt wipers. I've just made them full length. So what I'll do is I'll attach them, I'll mount the saddle back on the lathe, and I will use the adhesive side and attach them onto the saddle, and then I'll just trim the top off and bolt them through. Look, it's just gives you a really cheap way to do it. It's easy. I was going to originally cut recesses and just have the felt going in exactly in the positions, but it's a whole heap of work for literally no gain, and I can just cut these really easy, full length. Like I say, I've got a template here. I can just score around it with a sharp knife and just punch them out. And when they need replacing, I can just, you know, throw another one on. I'll probably make up 10 or so of them and just throw them in the drawer, you know, at a time. So if they start getting a bit crap, if they're letting stuff through or for whatever reason, they should be pretty easy just to replace. So I think at this stage, I think I'll remount the saddle onto the lathe, attach one of these, clamp them on, and then just give you a bit of a look how they finished up. And here they are all fitted up. You can see the felt compresses quite a bit. It goes down about half its thickness when it's squashed in between the aluminium plate. Obviously it's expanding out underneath where there's a bit of a recess for it to sit, along the edges I mean, basically. It's just kind of basically just feathering out along the edges. So all I did was I cut the pieces out off the template and then stuck them onto the side of the saddle with it in position and pushed them down so they were riding very hard against the prism on the front edge and hard down against the back edge on the lathe bed here. And to get the holes for the bolts to go through, I just used a scriber here and just pushed a hole in them and wiggled it around a little bit to aid the bolts going through, which I didn't really have much of a problem. Like anything, you know, you got to kind of wiggle around and all that sort of thing. But to make it easier, and it did make it easier, I ran the bolts in the cordless drill and just put them on the belt sander and just put a little bit of a point on them, and that enabled them to just push in quite easily and sort of self-center on the hole that the point had made, and allow them to start threading in quite easily. All in all, they go in and out quite easily, as you can see, particularly once it's been threaded in once. But yeah, so how well they're going to work, I guess that's to be seen. Obviously they're not going to be worse than the little rubber flaps that were on there. I think anything would be an improvement over that. I don't know what you guys have done in this situation to, you know, make improvements in this area. Let me know what you think of this way wiper setup that I've done, and let me know what you guys have done. I did see some, I think they were magnetic versions online somewhere. They were a similar kind of thing, and they just had some magnets in the back of them, but people complain that they just kept falling off all the time, which I reckon they would too. But this is pretty simple, just 3 4mm holes drilled and tapped into the saddle. You know, a bit of aluminium extrusion, some very minor shaping done to it, and then just using that to clamp some felt onto the lathe bed. I think it'll just work. It's a pretty simple thing. I can't see there's going to be too many problems with it, but definitely better than the rubber. So there you go, folks, bit of a quick one. Got a lot on at the moment, so my YouTube videos are a bit slow. I have got a lot of stuff planned for the mini lathe, and I have lots of bits and pieces ordered for it. So hopefully I'll get something with a bit of real meat to it out soon. So as always, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always appreciate the company, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.